Welcome to The Adaptable Octopus, a podcast hosted by Blair. Through honest and heartfelt storytelling, Blair shares her experiences navigating life with cerebral palsy. Each episode explores how she's adapted to challenges, found strength in vulnerability, and embraced her unique path. Her journey is a reminder that resilience and creativity can help us overcome even the toughest obstacles. Follow along to hear Blair's insights, connect with her story, and join a community that celebrates growth and adaptability. Subscribe now to be part of the conversation.
Welcome to the Adaptable Octopus. On today's episode, we are talking whether dreams are from God or outside sources. We have the pleasure to talk to Cathy Garland on today's episode. Welcome, Cathy.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be back.
My pleasure. I've always enjoyed talking to you and giving your insight. How do you know whether a vision or a dream is from God or outside sources?
You know, this is an important question, and I think sometimes people, when they get a dream, whether it's a dream of something they're going to do, or a dream while they're sleeping, or a vision while they're sitting and doing something, they feel like because they have it, they're supposed to know everything about it, as if it's, something that's supposed to be all downloaded from A to Z and everything in between. That's not how dreams work. That's not how visions work. That's not how life works. And that's certainly not how God works. So Scripture doesn't shame us when we ask Him, is this dream from you, or is this the pizza I ate last night? That's a legitimate question. And the Bible tells us we're supposed to test what we see and what we hear. So that 1 Thessalonians 5:21 says, test everything. Hold fast to what is good. Okay, so we have the modern saying, eat the meat and spit out the bones. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. There's another scripture, John 10:27, it says, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. So the implication is that He's going to speak, that we're going to know His voice. It might take some training, but we're going to follow Him. And that, by the way, is part of the purpose. So a God-given dream will, number one, never contradict Scripture. Another thing is a God-given dream will never pull us away from Christ. It'll never lure us toward pride or compromise.
Well, the story that comes to mind in the Bible is Joseph. And he had dreams and visions, but he was thrown in jail. He was, and he still believed that, hey, God's got me on this journey. So let's go deeper into that a little bit. Like,
I love, yes, love it. He's the best because he has the dreams, right? And first, he tells everybody and it ticks him off. So he's not the smartest cookie in the cookie jar. He's telling everybody that they're going to bow down and worship him. That'll make most people pretty ticked off. And then, then he has a second dream, and even his dad is like, really? Head over us, really? And your mom, too. But it does say that his dad thinks about it, puzzles on it, because he knows God. And he knows that God must be giving this dream to his son. And it's a strange dream, and he doesn't like the fact that it tells him what he thinks it tells him, but he's got to go with it because he knows God. Now, Joseph, like you said, at the end of his life, he says something to the effect of, he says, what you meant for evil, I know my God meant for good. And that sort of knowing there is like, I have confidently proven to myself over and over again that what others mean for evil, God uses for good. And that's sort of the statement of his life.
Yeah. And right now in my life, there's so much going on in my personal life. I have to remind myself that. God's going to use this. God's going to use this. I tell that to my children every time I talk to them. Like, this might look horrible in the moment, and it is. It is, but God's going to use it. And I love that. But I want to talk about the part where Joseph was interpret Pharaoh, was it Pharaoh?
Yes.
Pharaoh's dreams. Pharaoh's dreams, and then he was pulled to second command of Egypt. And that pressure, what do you think that pressure was like on Joseph?
I think that he was able to handle it so well because he had already been through the high pressure circumstances quite frankly, as preparation. So you just made a statement. You said, God's going to use this, right?
Mm-hmm.
No matter what it looks like, God's going to use it. All right, so let's take that all the way to the end. There is a saying, it's something to the effect of, God uses everything for our good. God uses everything for our salvation. But most people say it like this, and it's wrong when they say it like this. They say, everything has a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong. Everything has one purpose. In a Christian's walk with God, everything has one purpose. And that purpose is to make us like Christ. So when we say God's going to use it, what we actually mean is God is going to use it to make me look like Christ. Why? Why does God want to make us look like Christ? I get that he's his son and he's perfect and holy, but why does God want us to look like him? It's because he's holy and he can dwell with us.
Let's go back and talk about, people using the statement that God calls us to serve the people that hate us and just love them. But how do you use discernment of like, God's got me in this place where he's using me and I have to be humble and I have to just focus on God, and when hey, I don't belong here, how do you know the difference of like God's calling me to suffer and like I'm not supposed to be here?
Right. Okay, so now you're talking about boundaries, and that is where it gets tricky because so let's say somebody's offended and hurt us terribly, even abused us on a regular basis. Does part of laying my life down for others, including let myself get abused and then potentially dead, or abused in front of my children so that my children grow up thinking that this is normal? No, because that doesn't glorify God at all, nor does it work out the image of Christ in me. It probably works out the image of a victim. Christ was never a victim. He headed to the cross. He set his face to the cross. He went there on purpose, not as a victim. So sometimes we don't put up boundaries because the abuser has said, oh, you need to love me unconditionally. Wrong. That's not how this works. But you do have to learn to put up boundaries and keep them, in the sense that I can forgive someone and be glad that they will be at the Lamb's Supper in heaven, sitting at the table with me, but that doesn't mean they have to eat dinner with me at home. So sometimes part of looking like Christ is that you let some people go. Christ did not call every single person he met to walk with him on a daily basis. So sometimes we don't need those people either to walk with us. Or sometimes they come in for a season and then the boundary has to go up and they're out of this for the season. And everything doesn't tie up in a nice, pretty bow. Because I think as humans, we think everything has to be tied up in a nice, pretty bow and a good Disney ending to the story. No, that's not actually the case, because it's highly likely that God's so at work in their life, if you stay in their life, you could actually stop what God's doing in their life. So you have to hear from God. That's another part to this. We talked about knowing God. You got to hear God. Is God telling you, all right, that's enough for this person. That's enough in this season. Not cut them off, be angry, tell them that you're angry and make them know that you're offended and let them know how much they've hurt you. No, just gently, that's it. Here's my boundary. I'm going to honor that. People feel imposter syndrome. They feel that they're not, and they wake up with that feeling of dread a bit that they're going to be found out to not be this thing that they projected. So the way I avoid that is I don't project a whole lot. That isn't something somebody could come live with me and see. So the only thing I would maybe project that they couldn't come live with me and see is I do dress nicely when I leave the house, okay? But right now, as you and I both were laughing about, I'm wearing my fuzzy red robe. Okay, so that's about it. Like, I try to make sure that there's no dissonance between who I project and who I am. So that's one of the things that I personally do. Another thing is the daily quiet time. And I know people who are like, oh, I don't feel like that's a necessary thing. I don't know how they live. I don't know how anyone lives without a daily reading the Bible, getting on my knees and being silent. No bings, no dings, no phone, training my mind to be silent before God and then to pray. Not to start prayer with my to-do list, but with quiet. I have to do that every day. If I don't do that every day, I will be a tyrant by the end of the day, because you're right. There's a lot riding on people, right? And then also, you mentioned your concern, will people see it this way? People get offended or jealous or all the different emotions that happens to us all. And you have to, and this is, I think, what the Lord made me go through in those silent, settle on your knees, my love years, okay? I have to do this for the audience of one person, nobody else. If I do it for anybody else, even, and I know motivations are never 100% pure, but to the best of my ability, I surrender all that. And I do it for an audience of one. And that happened because I think you and I in our first podcast, we talked a little bit about this. Absolute surrender. All that I am, the good, the bad, the ugly, all that I'm not, the good, the bad, the ugly, and all that I ever hope to be, I surrender absolutely. I did that in my 20s, and I have reiterated it to myself when needed, but I have never looked back. That is sort of what I'm talking about, where there's only one God and only one focus, and everything, and even if you mess up, it's like, oh, that wasn't exactly what I needed. Okay, you just move forward, because you're not going to become the focus. You're not going to let your fault become the focus. It's like, oh, well, so sorry. Oops, moving on, and you do that.
I surrender my life, right? And I've surrendered my children,
right?
But I've never surrendered my dreams or so that's just amazing. Thanks for that insight. Yeah. So, I know you have a book coming out. It's called Known.
Yes.
I want to discuss that for a minute.
Sure, I can share with the audience. So on December 1st, the book Known comes out, and it's the Known Devotional, Know, all caps, Known. And it's 32 names of God and His identity. So what God does and who He is are the same thing. It's His identity, His character, and what that means for us. So in your situation here, there's a name in the Bible for God that directly matches with your need. So in some cases, it might be Jehovah Nissi, let's just say. So Jehovah Nissi, the Lord our banner. And there's a couple of things about a banner. A banner in an army says that you belong to this army and not that one. A banner is also the family crest, so you belong to this family. A banner is also a signal for you to do something or to not do something. Banner is pretty important in the Bible and used in many different ways. And Jehovah Nissi declares over us, you belong to my family, you are in my kingdom, you're on my side, I'm on your side, do this, step forward, do that. So Jehovah Nissi has the characteristic, that's just an example, that meets need, which is you don't know always what family you belong to, and you're not sure if you're fighting on the right side because the people who are fighting you should not be fighting you sometimes. They're on your side, right?
Yeah.
Get lost.
I love that. So just remember who God is. And if you're with him, walking, letting him lead you, then you're covered. Do you agree with that statement?
Absolutely, yes. And if your audience is kind of in that place where they feel like maybe they've been given a dream to do something and they're not sure if it's from God, and so they're trying to discern that, you can ask these questions like what you just said. It's kind of the whole conversation we've had. Does the dream further God's kingdom and bring him glory, or does it glorify me? Is it impossible without him? Because I know people who say God only gives you what you can handle, and that's a total lie. That's not true. I've never seen in the Bible where God gives them a mission that they could have done on their own. If it's not impossible, it's probably not from God. If it's impossible for you to do on your own, then it's probably from God, because he'll get the glory, because he's going to carry you and he's going to do a lot of things that you couldn't do on your own. And you'll say to everybody around you, oh, I'm not doing this, God's doing it. And he gets the glory.
I love that. I needed to hear that so much. And we're about to wrap the show up, but thank you. I'm going to ask you a question I ask everyone that comes on my podcast. If you could tell the world one thing, what would you tell them?
One thing. I would say stay anchored in who God is, his character, his voice, his word, and then be flexible in how he chooses to lead you. Be adaptable in how to lead us.
Yes. Thank you so much, Cathy, for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. Remember, always stay adaptable and just keep thriving. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the Adaptable Octopus. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can listen on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you love to stream. And if you have a moment, leave a review or share the podcast with someone who might enjoy it too. Your support means the world and helps grow this amazing community. Until next time, keep adapting, keep thriving, and take care.